Welcome to The Way the World Works, where the trusted team behind the Tuttle Twins books tackles current events, hot topics, and fun ideas to help your family find clarity in a world full of confusion.
Hi, Katie.
Hey, Brittany.
So, telehealth, or telemedicine as it's sometimes called, is one of my favorite things of the modern world. And telehealth, if you didn't know, sometimes called telemedicine, is the ability to meet with your doctor over the phone or email or like through a video call. Basically, it's being able to talk to your doctors outside of a traditional office. And this has been so good for people for so many reasons that we'll talk about later. But, there were a lot of laws that restricted telehealth and before the pandemic, and a lot of that was it was new, so it was almost like they didn't know how to regulate it, and there was also
Mhm.
I can't remember what the clause is, in the Constitution, but basically old school health laws said you could only see, like, doctors within your state, and I don't remember why
Mm.
they existed. But so telehealth, they just didn't really know how to make it so it could be used in this world, so there are all these
It's like
restrictions before the pandemic,
it's like that blissful 5 minutes where something new emerges and they haven't
and they
figured out how
don't.
to ruin it yet.
No, exactly, exactly, but since people were so worried about the spread of COVID, we were told to stay home, the government suspended telehealth laws to make it easier for people to see doctors without leaving their homes, and, I try to see the positive in everything, and that was, to me, one of the most positive things about COVID is that, like, the free market was allowed
Mhm,
to happen in some areas because everyone was so scared of the spread of COVID, and so, like, little silver linings, right? We take them where we can get them.
mhm.
But it did something else, and that is it allowed people to see doctors anywhere in the country, and you couldn't do that before. And obviously, when you can see doctors anywhere, that means that now everybody has more access to any doctor they wanted to see, which gives them the freedom to choose their healthcare. And that means that the quality of care goes up because you have so many more options. And that's the whole point of the free market, right? We
Mm.
want more options for people to choose from. So before the pandemic, and I want to be careful how I say this, like years ago before the pandemic, you could do this because there weren't any laws yet. And, most of that was like email or phone calls because the video calls weren't really what they are today, or they were starting to be. But in the years after that, as it started becoming more of a thing, you couldn't do it, right? And most insurances wouldn't even cover it because it was just not what they've always done. So you could only see doctors in your state. And even if you could see telehealth, again, they had to be in your state. So that restricted the care you could get and the doctors you wanted to see, right? It didn't really encourage a free market in healthcare. And we have so many people talking about our broken healthcare system, which is very true. But it's so funny that every time you provide a solution of like, oh, this could help people get care, it's like, no, no, we don't want to do that. We got to find another way. We have to make the
Mhm.
government do it, or we have to do this and that. So now, because the pandemic is over, the government is bringing back these telehealth laws. Like they were already set to expire, but I think they prolonged it because everyone was so mad about it.
Mhm.
So they're getting rid of these laws again, or they're making them worse again, and people are suffering. And Katie, you and I talked about this offline, but I believe you said you don't really have that much experience using telehealth, right?
Nope, I really don't. I think in another podcast, we talked about how our family's kind of been into holistic medicine, and so I haven't really had an opportunity to need it, although I do have a grown daughter who does use it and loves it.
And to me, it's just been so convenient because I mean, there are some things you have to go see a doctor for, right? There are some things that like they can't really diagnose over a computer screen, but so much of it can be, and so
Mhm.
much of it, like even little things like as you get older, there are like creams you can put in your face to stop wrinkles, and like to do that, like I would have to go into a specialist and a doctor, and now I use telehealth for things like that.
You're like, "Look at my wrinkles, just give it to me."
Exactly, I didn't even have to see anybody. Literally had to text message, so it was wonderful. I love that.
You're like,
Um,
"Here's my birthday, obviously I need it, just
yeah,
write me the
obviously,
prescription."
I need it. But there's more important things. So one of these stories, that really touched me, because 'cause I've had a lot of cancer in my family, are cancer patients who are being affected by this in certain states. So there are some treatments, like experimental treatments, that aren't available in every state. You can only get them in certain states. And so there were patients that during the pandemic who got cancer, and a lot of them are children, were able to get these experimental treatments because they were able to meet with their doctors on like a video chat and set up everything and then like go and get the treatments wherever they were. But if they didn't have telehealth, they would have had to go to their doctor for every single checkup. And imagine being a 5-year-old with cancer and your family has to fly back and forth as you're going through all these treatments and you're not feeling well. And think about cancer treatment's very expensive. So imagine you're also having to pay for flights and hotels. It's such a burden on families. So it was, a godsend. It was so good for some of them to be able to just call their doctor on the video chat and save all this money. And
Mhm.
now, because they're taking away these or they're putting back the restrictions, these people can't see their doctors anymore. And it's not just that, Katie. It's if the doctors talk to them on the phone, they can actually get criminal charges. So
Ugh, it
they're
just seems so evil.
criminalizing. Right? And I've been thinking about it because whenever something like this happens, my first inclination is like follow the money or follow the motives.
Mhm.
Why would the government want to do this? But I actually can't find a motive here because for the most part, this isn't going to affect any like hospitals and competition because it opens up more opportunities
Right.
for them. So it's almost to me just feels like it's something that scares people. Like this isn't the way it's always been done. And
Mhm.
so, or they just don't care. It's not affecting them. And so they don't care. So it's crazy to me that now people won't get to see their doctors, especially if they're in the middle of, like, something like cancer treatment, you know what I mean?
Mhm. Well, I think sometimes, it's things like this that lead people like me, maybe people like you, possibly people who listen to this podcast, down what would be called like a conspiracy theory path, right? You're like, here's something that works. Here's something that doesn't seem to pose a threat to anyone. We can't think of any reason that this would not be allowed. And so you start thinking, like, okay, well, is it control? Like, do they just want to have more localized control of people? Is it that they actually don't want people to get well or to be well? You start thinking along those lines, like what reason, when there isn't a clear and open and um, acceptable to a rational minded person reason, you do start thinking like, well, maybe there's something nefarious here. Like maybe they just don't want people to have access to good healthcare or people to have, choices. Like it starts to make you think that maybe, the powers that be are really just bad.
And I think that's a good point. People we've actually done episodes in the past about, like, conspiracy theories and people calling people conspiracy theorists, but it's almost like they invite that in when they do these things and you don't
Mhm.
really know why. And there's another aspect of telehealth that's very important. And one of the issues I worked on in my job before the pandemic was relaxing these telehealth laws, specifically because there are people in rural areas, like out in the country, that
Mhm.
for them to see a doctor is like an all-day trip, right?
Listen,
They would
that's
have
that's
to.
me. That's our
Oh, that's
family.
right, yeah.
Yeah,
And
we live
imagine. Oh,
way
go on,
out.
yep.
No, I was just
How
gonna say
far
we
how far would it be? I know you don't see traditional doctors often, but how far would it be,
yeah.
like, to the nearest hospital?
We have a very small community hospital here, but they do very, very little. Our closest access to like doctors, orthodontists, our vision care, dentists, all of that is about an hour to an hour and a half drive from us. So it's true. Like if we want to go be seen, it's like a really big endeavor. And there are people that live a lot more rural than we do, but you live an hour and a half from your doctor. It's like you take a whole day off work, your kids miss a whole day of
Yeah.
school. Like it's a real commitment.
Well, and so imagine if you didn't have to do that, right? If it was something you did not have to go see a doctor in person for, you could do that from your living room and you would save all the money and the time because time is money, right? Our time is very valuable. And there's another thing about it too. So let's say I heard a story when I was working on this issue and I don't remember all the details, but it was a farmer. He lived very rural. He was an older gentleman and he thought he was having a heart attack, but he was able to use telehealth and he was able to, through that call, realize that he was not having a heart attack and they were able to like send the medication he needed and he was fine. But let's
Wow.
say he didn't know that and he had driven all the way to the emergency room. Those are very expensive. I don't know if you ever get
Mhm.
stuck with a
Yeah.
emergency room bill, but it's even more expensive if an ambulance has to come get you. That can
Mhm.
be financially devastating to people because ambulances are so expensive. So here you had a guy who was able to save all this money because he had access to telehealth, but not everyone has that. And so this is one of these issues that is so important to me because, for one, I like finding actual solutions to our healthcare issues. And too many people, I don't think, do that, which is such a
Mhm.
problem with government, right? They think
Mhm.
regulation or oh, free healthcare for everybody is the cure,
Mhm.
when now we have all these great free market things. Like, I don't know about you. Do you wear glasses or anything?
I don't.
Really?
No.
I don't know if I know anybody who does, who hasn't like LASIK, who doesn't wear glasses. Well,
Listen, I'm
I
not saying
do.
that I probably shouldn't wear glasses. I'm saying I
You
don't,
just don't.
but that doesn't mean that I shouldn't.
That's so funny. Well, so I don't like going to the eye doctor a lot because they always just like push me buying contacts from them. And I know that's a silly thing, but I don't like being pressured into buying things. And my prescription only changes like every 3 years. So I do all that online too. I do that
Mhm.
every year so I can keep getting my contact. So it's like little things like that. Now that for some reason is not like illegal under telehealth laws. So that's weird because I've been able to do that for longer. So the laws are very blurry, but it's just so convenient for people, and above
I
all, oh, go on.
Well, I was gonna say it kind of leads me to think, I don't know what the male equivalent might be. Maybe some of our listeners can tell us if there is a male equivalent, but I know that one of the things that, I have 6 daughters, obviously I'm a woman, and I know that, women generally talk to each other about kind of this frustration of feeling like their doctors don't always listen to them or acknowledge that they like know their bodies. I've talked to a lot of women, like women who are pregnant, and they say, "Hey, I think that I'm in labor," and their doctor will kind of dismiss them and be like, "No, no, it's not time yet," or whatever. And then, like, yeah, they have a baby like right then. And so it almost feels kind of like that problem also. Like if you have the ability to have a telehealth appointment, it does relay or it does require, your doctor basically believing you. Like when you say, "Hey, here's what I'm feeling, here's what I'm concerned about. This is what it feels like to me, or this is what I'm seeing." It seems like your doctor would be likely to be like, "Yeah, that makes sense, and let's operate off of you, knowing how to interpret what's happening with your body." And so it seems like it's even worse to take that away because then you're in a position where like not only do you have to always travel and take the time to make it hard, that is harder, but it almost feels like it's more of a like, well, you couldn't possibly know enough to give an accurate description to your doctor of what the problem is.
No, that's a really good point because I know I'm a little bit of a hypochondriac, meaning I always think I'm sick, but because of that, I'm very hyper aware of my body.
Mhm.
And so sometimes I'll go in and I'll say, "This is going on," and they'll be like, "Oh, are you a hypochondriac?" But then I'll end up being right? And they're like, "Oh,
You're
okay."
like,
And so it's
"Yes, but also this is wrong."
exactly. And so you're right. There's like a little bit more, not that they don't believe me, but a little bit more, they'll listen a little bit more. So that's a really good point. So we'll wrap it up in a second. I want to end by saying, at the end of the day, the biggest thing about this is that the free market is the best solution to everything. And we know that. And when it comes to something as important as your medical care, you should be able to choose whatever you want and to see whatever doctor you want. And people, especially doctors, shouldn't be criminalized for serving their patients. So this is a real big issue and we'll see what happens. It's very possible. I'm hopeful that this will just get extended because people are so angry about it that they've already extended the deadline further. So, I think it might be something that's here to stay and I hope it is. So we'll wrap it up there. You guys don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. Until next time, we will talk to you soon.
Bye.
You've been listening to The Way the World Works. Make sure your family is subscribed and check out TuttleTwins.com for more awesome content.